Hey, it's me, Brad Hammond here, your Portland area investment loving agent. Today, I want to talk about selling your investment property quickly and for the most amount of money. A lot of these are going to have tenants occupied, some of them might have a vacant unit, but let's talk about both. A little bit about me. I have been investing since 2008. I've been doing house hacking and live in flips and short term rentals, long term rentals. I've managed all my own properties. So I know a lot about what it takes firsthand to be able to do these topics I'm talking about. I was an agent starting in 2019, and I really only work with investors, whether that's multifamily, single family, long term, short term, medium term rentals, all the above. It's what I know, it's what I love. Those are my people. So, a little bit about what we're going to be talking about today: preparing your property to sell, creating a strategy, preparing the tenants, working with the tenants, and then what are we going to do after the sale? So, preparing your property for sale. For repairs, make sure there's no safety issues, that there's no dry rot on the back deck, that their stairs are not wobbly, the hand railing is in good shape. We can talk about smaller repairs later once we're in the due diligence period with the buyer and they're doing their repair inspections and negotiations. We can I would highly recommend increasing the rents to market rent if they're not currently there. I've seen so many properties just sit on the market because the rents are so far under market value that it doesn't make sense for a buyer to purchase that property at what would be a solid price, because it's going to take the buyer years and years to get that unit up to market rent. Landscaping, just like with your single family home, make sure that the landscaping is in good shape and there's no dead or dying bushes. Replace those. Put some flower pots out, those types of things. The best time to sell, not necessarily time of year, but when the property is showing its best. So there might be a vacancy in there. You've got the market rent up to date, and it's in the best condition you can get it in. So creating your strategy. Let's get myself out of the way here. So selling with or without tenants matters. Think about, if you're looking to sell, maybe your tenants would want to purchase a property. This is going to be more for a single family home, but it's absolutely worth having that question. It's going to be a lot easier to sell to your tenants, but you might be getting less than market value if you sell to just one person versus putting it on the broad market. You can try to sell when a unit is vacant. That's going to be your best way to go. You're going to want to get the tenants on board with the sale. If the tenants have been there for over a year, terminating the tenancy is not going to be an option. Let me specify that. If there is a fixed term lease, if the lease says that it ends on March 26th, for example, then you cannot terminate that tenancy. If it's a month to month tenancy, then yes, absolutely. If it's less than a year and it's month to month, then you don't have to pay the relocation fee. Getting the tenant to cooperate. I'm going to spend a decent amount of time on this just because it is so important. But giving the tenant gift cards, days or evenings out, or just to say thank you is a really big deal. It goes a really far way. Pay to have the unit cleaned is a good idea as well. Having it professionally cleaned. Hopefully the tenants will tidy up, and then having somebody in there to get the kitchen nice and clean, doing the windows, some of those things that usually get forgotten. You can get the tenant a hotel stay for a night or a weekend while you get a lot of this stuff done, or when the inspections are happening, those types of things. One thing I would suggest is don't discount the rent. Don't tell the tenant, hey, I'll knock $200 a month off your rent for the next 3 months if you just go along with this whole process. That's going to bite you in the butt later on. Just make sure that you are giving them extra things rather than deducting from their rent. Creating a timeline of events just so that I know what's happening. The buyer, the seller, the tenant all knows what's going on, when and why. So we want to make sure that everybody is involved with that timeline, and then make sure that as we're going along, that everybody is being kept up to date, because that is going to keep that tenant very happy and make them realize that they are valued in this process as well. Because don't forget, this is their home that we're talking about here. It's not just a property that is giving you money. It's their home, and they've lived there for maybe just a couple of years or a few months, but that is where they go to relax. So preparing the tenants, as I mentioned, giving them the timeline of events, just have this really good communication with them is going to be key. Inform them of any and all visits to the property, whether it's going to be somebody in their unit or just on the roof, walking around up there. Just make sure that they know and understand that that's going to be happening. A general idea of the timeline is going to be best. If you can give them specifics, great, or just, the afternoon of the 19th is fine too. And then keep them updated as the progress of the transaction as well. Provide them an incentive to cooperate, even if they are going along with it. But gift cards, again, go a really long way. It could be Starbucks or Fred Meyer. Purchasing them a weekend little getaway, a trip, maybe it's going to be downtown, wherever you can find a deal on a hotel, I think is going to be a good way to go. And then finding out what their hot button issues are. Maybe they work nights, or they've got large dogs or small children. You want to make sure that they feel heard and that you are working with them on these topics. I've had tenants that definitely want to be there when something's going on, and tenants that definitely don't want to be there when there is an inspection or something going on. Working with the tenants, make sure that you over communicate, because it's crucial. I cannot specify this enough. It is extremely important to make sure that the tenant feels heard and valued and not left in the dark with what's going on. Give them as much notice as possible for things that are going to be happening. So I would say give them a week's notice if that's possible. That's not always possible, especially during the inspection period. And then try to give them a reminder the day before or the morning of as well. And then check in with them periodically about how the process is going for them. You got to make sure that you're doing those notices properly, accurately, on time. You're using correct form. If you are doing interior photos, then ensure that the property is clean and tidy. Remember when I was saying before about how it would be a good idea to have a cleaner go in there and spruce it up a little bit? This is what I'm talking about. When photos are taken, hopefully there'll be a flurry of activity right away when it's listed. Just make sure that the tenants realize that anything that they have out, their personal items, are going to be put up on the internet for anybody to see. So maybe take down personal photos. Any personal belongings that they don't want up there should be removed. And again, just whenever you're in a property, I like to leave a $10 Starbucks gift card or Target gift card in there just to say thanks and sorry for the inconvenience. I think this is the third time I've talked about over communicating, and there's a reason. They should know about what is going on at all times with the property. Again, it is their home. Make sure that all notices are being sent out correctly. If you have a property manager, they will be doing this. If not, I would be handling that for you, or if you feel comfortable, you can handle that as well. Photos can be tricky. Just make sure that they are not having personal items in there. It's good to have some interior photos. I've seen listings that just have exterior and it never goes well. You have to have at least some interior photos so that people know and understand the condition of the property. It could just be the kitchen, maybe the bathroom where there's not a whole lot of personal things going on. But maybe you as the owner have some previous marketing photos that you've used during the previous vacancy to market to new tenants. Those would be perfectly fine as well if nothing else can happen. I think we've kind of talked about some of those other items to death. If they don't want to cooperate, if the tenant is not wanting to cooperate, that can get a little bit tricky. Hopefully at this point we've done everything we possibly can to get them on board with the sale. But if not, then we want to make sure that they know that, hey, this transaction is happening whether you like it or not. You don't have to like what's going on, but this is going to happen. This train is leaving whether you're on it or not. Make sure that all the items that need to happen to the property are happening, and then create a timeline of events for those tenants. And again, you are issuing the correct notices when needed. That's going to be a big thing, because that can, the tenant, if they know what they're doing, they can hold up the transaction if you're not giving them the correct amount of notice. Then after the sale, what are your options for the proceeds? Well, you can pay the taxes. Again, there's a local, state, and federal. Don't forget about the depreciation recapture, because that is very much a thing. You've been enjoying the depreciation for the past however many years you've owned it, and now it's time to pay 25% of that back to the government. You can do a 1031 exchange. You would want to make sure that you are getting this lined up well before we even place it on the market. I can introduce you to a handful of qualified 1031 exchange intermediaries. There are quite a few timelines involved with this that you need to make sure they are doing it correctly. The biggest takeaway is that you cannot ever touch the proceeds of the money. It goes into that intermediary account, and then they will disperse it for the next transaction. You could do a Delaware Statutory Trust 1031, which is just another type of 1031. It's lower barrier to entry, a little bit more passive, not quite the returns. I've got somebody I can introduce to you that knows quite a bit more about that than I do. But whatever option you're considering, let's talk about it. There's pros and cons to everything, and it's important for you to know all of those options so that you can make the best informed decision. So the major takeaways here are: the best ways to sell a multifamily is with a vacant unit, if possible, with the rents at current market, and the property being slightly underpriced. Getting the tenants to cooperate is going to be the difference between the property selling or not selling. Possibly. I've seen a lot of properties that is the biggest issue, is that the tenants are digging their heels in. They don't want people in their unit, and it's just a matter of getting them on board ahead of time. Physically prepare the property for sale, both inside and outside. Again, making sure there's no safety issues. The landscaping is up to date. Maybe it could use an exterior painting. That would go a long way as well. Slightly underprice your property. That's going to attract more buyers and more activity, hopefully getting multiple offers. And then have a plan for the proceeds. Is that going to be a 1031? Are you going to be paying the taxes on it? It's really, really important to think about now before we get too far down the road. And then the last thing, I can't over stress this enough, but have an agent that's going to be knowledgeable about working with tenants and selling investment properties. It is completely different than selling a single family regular owner occupied property. There's a lot of nuances with this, and you have to have somebody that knows it from the tenant's perspective as well as the seller's perspective and the buyer's perspective. So do your homework and find somebody that is going to be able to do this correctly. So, what are your questions? What are your ahas? What kind of blew your mind? There are so many little one-offs with this, with somebody's specific situation. There's no way I would even be able to think of all of these things. But feel free to hit me up. Call, text, email, whatever works best for you. Leave a comment, and I'd be happy to talk about these with you. But the biggest thing I can say is try to plan for this well ahead of time so that there's no surprises, and you can line things up and make sure that things are going according to plan. Again, way ahead of time. So, once again, what did you guys think? Any other questions? Feel free to reach out. All right, talk to you next time.